it's Emma Vigeland with TYT Politics, here with a very familiar face in the windiest place on planet Earth. I feel like I'm on Mars or something. I think it has wind on Mars. I have no knowledge of science. We're here in Washington, D.C. before the Medicare for All Town Hall, emceed by Anna Kasparian with Bernie Sanders there. So are you prepped? Are you excited for tonight?
I am prepped on the issue, and I want to sit down and really gather my thoughts about the panelists, because this isn't a town hall with Bernie Sanders and only Bernie Sanders. There are so many professionals in the medical field who will be chiming in and sharing their perspective on this issue, which I think is important. Now, in terms of the format of the conversation, I like the way that it's set up, because first we're going to start off with what it's like to practice and receive healthcare in the current system that we have. Then we're going to move on to the economic ramifications of Medicare for All, which is the single payer system that Bernie is pushing for. And then we're going to kind of end the conversation by comparing what a Medicare for All system would look like and what universal healthcare is like in other countries. So it's a very comprehensive, in-depth discussion on an issue that a lot of Americans feel passionately about. More than 60% of Americans do believe that the government is responsible for providing healthcare for all Americans. So Medicare, as we know, is a very popular program, and even though cable news networks refuse to talk about Bernie Sanders' proposal, we're going to do it, and I think that it's going to be a great discussion.
So I constantly hear that Medicare for All is unrealistic, that it's never going to happen. But as Anna pointed out, it's one of the most popular programs on its own in the country. And then also 60% of Americans, polls vary up to 70% of Americans, think that the government should be providing health care for individuals. And Sanders has been beating the drum on that. And Republicans are having discussions. They didn't eventually do it. They did extend CHIP about cutting health care for underprivileged children, 9 million of them, instead of talking about expanding health care. That's what the dichotomy is between the representation in the Senate and in the House especially, and with where the American people are ideologically.
Yeah, and I want to add to that a little bit, because I am not really interested in remaining in any type of ideological bubble. I want to understand the perspective of the other side as well. And so I did my due diligence. I want to make sure that I'm well researched on this issue, and I looked into the Republican argument against a Medicare for All system, and I kid you not, their only argument is it's going to raise taxes, which, by the way, we will hash out in the discussion today, and private industry does much better at providing services than the government does. But that's not necessarily the case. They were against Medicare when it was first implemented, and then it ended up being so popular, and they're like, God damn it, people like it, and they don't have a good argument against it, and they know that Americans like it, which is why it's an incredibly unpopular campaign proposal to cut Medicare. They always shy away from it. And when it comes to the issue of raising taxes, people forget that under a single payer system, you're not paying premiums, you're not paying deductibles, you're not paying all the BS that we have to deal with on a regular basis, even with good health insurance coverage. And yeah, we would raise taxes for all Americans to the tune of 2%. But think about how much you're going to save when you don't have to deal with the private industry and ridiculous pharmaceutical prices.
But for people that already have health insurance, it doesn't really concern them about spreading the wealth for the rest of Americans. I will also say that when you take money out of the conversation, when pharmaceutical interests aren't involved, it's really a no-brainer, and that's why it's taken so long to inch Democrats to the left on this, even when it's actually left of center, since 60% of Americans support the government running health care. So they have 16 co-sponsors of Medicare for All, including Cory Booker of my home state. Takes a lot of pharmaceutical money. A lot of Democrats that were considered more conservative in the past have come on board. So there is some good news here. And the fact that TYT, Attention, and now this are hosting the town hall shows that this conversation is spreading. And definitely tune in 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. I can't do math. That's right?
Yes, that's
okay.
Right.
Cool. So yeah, tune in then. Anna will be emceeing. It's going to be amazing. She's the greatest. So check that out on tytnetwork.com/live. See you guys there.